The AEW television for May 31st was a mixed bag. Some of it was rotten and some of it was worse. Now, they started the show with the BBC against Felix and Penthouse and Bandito. So, of course, you have a group that fashions itself a bunch of British shooters, even though there's no British people in it, against a group of luchadors that is the ultimate style clash to anybody trying to do any kind of realistic ground and pound style pro wrestling. So, of course, this is a match Tony would make. And the intriguing thing about Moxley to me now, as I look at him, when he comes out, he's doing the entrance, the facials, the way he walks, he has convinced himself that he is a big star and a badass. I don't know how he talked himself into that, but he did. And remember, I've always said that that's half the battle. You've got to be convinced of who you are before you can make the people believe it.
Yeah.
I think he's stuck at half the battle because he's got all the confidence. Look at him. Look at the state of him. Look at the sunken chest. Look at the fucking buggy whip arms. Look at the flabby, pale, unimpressive physique. Look at the baldingness of him. And look at his phony looking fucking work.
Yeah, to me, that's the bigger issue. It's not even the way he looks, it's the way the work looks, if you actually look at it.
That's what what is everybody? I'm astonished. I'm fascinated. I'm trying to find something about this guy that would lead people to think that he's a star of some description.
There are people, I've said it too many times at this point, it's a cult of personality around Moxley, and there are people who like the idea that he is this guy that he's going to do his own thing and he has his own ideas. And, the front cover of his book is like this preposterous photo of him on an empty road with like the jackets hanging off his shoulder. I mean, it's like a total like Calvin Klein, like let's take a photo of someone if Calvin Klein started shooting people who looked like John Moxley. But I think that's what it is, because when I've been watching, because I hate to say it, but the listeners have become way too big of fans of the Moxley impression. So now I pay extra attention to his stuff just because I want to keep things real. And I'm watching his work and it's not good. I know there's a lot of shit happening, and maybe that's intentional. Every time he's going to do something, Wheeler and Claudio are doing something.
Yeah.
So there's stuff everywhere. But if you actually watch what he's doing, I'm not saying hurt people, but lay it in so it looks like it's hurting people.
No, there's nothing to it. There's no element of believable work to it. It's just he expects people to believe that he's got this aura of badassery because he drinks bones and eats blood. And then he's out there doing shit that doesn't connect with anything on anybody. And again, there's Bandito out there wearing what looks like a Silver Age Flash outfit and carrying an inflatable Thor hammer. And this is the first match on the show. They just start with a sloppy six-way, go to the floor in the first 30 seconds. There's guys going over the rail into the people. And after a while, two of the guys get in the ring and the bell rings while the others are still fighting on the floor. And that's what you were talking about. There's always a lot of shit going on. And we saw this with that. God, remember when they first started the program, the Dork Order jumped in and there was 10 guys in masks supposedly beating up the baby faces. And when you went and isolated anything, there was the guy punching the mat next to the baby face's head.
That's right.
And and it was ridiculous. They think because a lot of shit is going on at the same time that nobody's going to see their shit sucks. But the problem is you've got 5,000 people or however many. There's always somebody looking at you in an arena like that. How many, I don't know, but there's always somebody. And it's television. You don't know which shot they're taking. So it doesn't matter if you're in a fucking multiple person schmoz, your shit has to look professional. So anyway.
And by the way, Danielson was on commentary this whole time.
Yes, the best wrestler in the fucking company, and all he does is do commentary and then have fucking garbage matches with no rules in groups. It's like, here we've got fucking Jimi Hendrix. Let's put him in the fucking band back there and let him pick along with our lead guitarist. Did you see where Bandito picked old Wheeler up for a vertical suplex and held him for a count of 60?
Yeah, you see, I'm not a fan of that kind of thing. And that was certainly the audience for it because they liked playing along with the wrestlers, and there's always an audience somewhere for that, but that's not the kind of fan I am.
Well, and
I don't like those kind of spots.
Again, it was impressive once upon a time years ago when a big guy who did a vertical suplex would pick a guy up and hold him up there for 10 seconds to make the blood rush to his head, then slam him down. But it was, number one, it was usually in a singles match where there was no partner that could help. Secondly, it was 10 seconds. It wasn't a fucking 60 count, not even a minute, but 60, because here's this fucking clown holding the guy who's obviously balancing himself precariously, and with his other hand, he's counting along with the people, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Meanwhile, the partners get the other two members of the BBC in submission holds so they can't interfere, but they're just laying in submission holds for 60 seconds, and the referee is just staring at all of this with 6 guys in the ring so that this guy can do his phony fucking spot. And then the guy has to start helping him and shifting his weight around to not go down or whatever.
And again, it's a 6-man tag match, so while he's holding him in a suplex, everyone else just has to stay down.
Yes. In these holes that nobody's tapping to and nobody's really even selling because they're not looking, all the attention's on the other. And then again, if you'd have told a babyface 30 years ago, I'm going to pick you upside down and hold you where you're completely ineffectual and can't get out for 60 seconds and then suplex you, they said, fuck you. You're not. It makes me look like an idiot. So anyway, at that point, I said, I'm out. I skipped to the finish. Useless and Bandito had the most ridiculous, never-ending forearm exchange I've ever seen, where they wouldn't stop, where everybody else in the match was on the floor apparently just staring at it. And then Bandito went to the top, but Felix and Penthouse jumped in the ring and stood and watched, and then both of them dove onto Wheeler Useless's partners who were standing on the floor waiting to catch them, and Bandito did a splash off the top rope, and that was a 2 count. And then Bandito gave Useless some kind of move that I think that he botched, but I'm not sure what it was supposed to look like to begin with. And then several people did shit. And then Useless did the armpit fart elbows to Bandito and pinned him with some kind of roll-up. So they just did all the shit that they knew how to do, everybody, in this whole match. And when they were out of it, then the guy just beat the other guy with the simplest shit you could do.
The concerted effort to try to get Wheeler over continues. You know, the fans were into this. Got to say, they had a hot crowd for AEW in San Diego. That was certainly their crowd.
You know why, don't you?
Why?
Because they were all in San Diego. They were jacking it, baby.
Okay. Listen.
Jacking it, jack. Smacking it, smack. I want to go where AEW goes. They're jacking it. I want to watch them masturbate down to their toes. They're jacking it. I want to go to San Diego to watch Tony and the Plumber jacket. Oh, yo.
Unfortunately, the jacking that they're doing is the ticket prices. They get
Yes, they're jacking him way up.
But with Wheeler Yuta, see, that's the thing. The fans are reacting. And certainly Moxley, whatever we say about him, he's over with a large part of their audience. Claudio is along for the ride. Danielson wasn't really involved. He's on commentary, but he's over with their audience. The question is Yuta. I like the idea of elevating and pushing young guys. The question is, it has to be it has to be the right guy. And the question is Wheeler Yuta the right guy?
I would buy Action Andretti over Wheeler Yuta.
Well, I was going to say, for all the complaints I've had about various people on the roster and just not believing their physicality, Wheeler Yuta, I'm sorry, even Moxley, I would believe over Wheeler Yuta. Wheeler Yuta's now won this match. They put him over Kenny Omega in the other thing. That's only happening because that's what Danielson and Moxley wanted to happen with this, obviously. Tony's not suggesting it, it's these guys. But why? Of all the people to elevate, he still looks like, even after they're done with this whole thing, he still needs more time. He needs more weight, if we're going to be honest. But it seems like he's going to need more time and age and weight. But they're treating him like a young guy who is a clear-cut guy that should be elevated, like an Austin Theory. And not everyone's in that kind of shape, but I don't know. It should be someone imposing, not just someone they like.
It ought to be somebody that you can obviously tell stands half a chance of being a star attraction in the wrestling business instead of a kid that they like, that they want to hang around in their group. And that should be, it shouldn't be a talents call. It should be a Tony Khan call. Because the talent used to be smarter. Who did the Horsemen want to elevate? Lex Luger. The next billion-dollar baby, at least you could see it. You know, these guys, they want to elevate midgets because they're friends. Anyway, and we were 20 minutes into the program before that whole thing was done, by the way. See our previous conversation about Long not being necessarily classic. And then did you, I've got to say, before we talk about the fact they're going to have another fight about who's friends with who again, did you love the attention to detail after the Double or Nothing exploding sneaker super kick? They go back in the locker room and Bar Brady is with the Buckaroos and Hangnail Page, and Maddie is getting his foot wrapped by the doctor. Because you know that the fucking pyro in those exploding sneakers, that's got to be painful, right?
The thumbtacks he stepped on, that's what's painful.
Fuck. And he actually said, this is a quote, ladies and gentlemen, "I never thought I'd try to melt a man's face with an exploding sneaker, but here we are."
And by the way, the next time they do an exploding ring match, now you know what to do. Just put those sneakers all around the ring.
Yeah.
That worked.
But here's the thing. They probably won't do one of those because, remember, Moxley didn't sell it.
There were no bombs that went off. That was the other problem. Eddie Kingston sold it like he was dead.
Yeah, Eddie Kingston sold it when the fucking thing misfired, and Moxley, he gets hit in the head with an exploding sneaker and doesn't sell it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway.
I thought you meant he didn't sell the original explosion.
Oh, well, who sells anything? Anyway, while they're whining and griping about whatever their fucking issue is, and old they ought to call him Hang Dog Page now. He's just got that downtrodden expression on his face. The Dork Order come in, and they're upset that Hangnail is with his new friends. They're like, oh, you're with your new friends now. They're actually going to do a thing now between the Dork Order and the Buckaroos and Hangnail, all the friends from California, about who's my friend again. How many who's my friend angles have they done in this amongst all of the people who are legitimately friends? That's why they like to work together. It doesn't matter what's good for business. It doesn't matter what will make Tony Khan any money. We just want to go to work and have fun working with our friends.
If I told you the Bucks were going to work with the Dark Order, what would the segment be? You probably would have guessed this exact thing. They would argue about who's friends with Hangman Adam Page.
Yeah.
You know, the problem is we've seen a lot of the friends wrestle their other friends for 4 years now. The point has to come where Tony Khan says, okay, you've wrestled all your friends enough, and we brought in other friends, and you've wrestled them enough. Now you have to wrestle someone else's friends.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon because we got Dork Order doing subtle, smart aleck digs at, I suspect they're going to have a Twitter feud here pretty soon too. And also we got the information that Kenny has left the country, but he's not.
How did we leave that? That was the best part. Alex Marvez, with all of his charisma. We understand Kenny Omega has left the country.
Yeah.
What?
He's left the country, but he's not in Canada. Did you hear that?
Oh, I missed that. I was too busy laughing and he's left the country.
No, because he said Kenny has left the country. Apparently, the fucking depositions were about to be unsealed.
Oh, stop it.
But he's left the country, but one of the idiots said, I guess he's gone back to Canada. Nope. He's out of the country, but he's not in Canada.
How does Marvez know?
Well, no, that was Hangnail.
Oh, that was Hangnail who said it. Oh.
Yeah, I think. So the point is, we know two things. We know Canada is safe, and we know that Kenny, because what other country would want him, has gone back to Japan, and I'm sure it's just so that he can be called on the carpet and be handed the official Harry Carey knife for the fucking way he's botched this video game. But the story will probably be he's going to go to Japan and get a friend, because you know that Tony wants all the Japanese friends of Kenny to come and play at Forbidden Door. It's a big international kids party there where all the kids from all the different countries can come and play with each other. That's my prediction.
Who do you think he comes back with, Ibushi or Okada?
Geez, hopefully Okada, because at least he's, a good wrestler, but I'm sure he'll come back with Ibushi because they have a history before of getting in the ring with sex toys and humping them in public. So that's probably who he'll pick. Am I lying? Am I telling a goddamn lie when I say that both Kenny, Twinkle Toes Omega, and Kota, who gives a fuck about him, Ibushi, have a history of it on wrestling shows, getting in the ring with sex dolls and fucking humping them in front of people? Am I lying when I make that statement? Am I lying when I make the statement that both Kenny, Twinkle Toes Omega, and Kota, I don't give a fuck, Ibushi, have a history of it on wrestling shows, getting in the ring with underage children, female in the single-digit age group, and having competitive wrestling matches with them where they're giving them all kinds of moves and grabbing all parts of their bodies to pick them up and swing them around? Am I lying when I make that statement?
I know Omega has. I'm not sure if Ibushi has, so I don't know for sure.
I'm pretty sure I saw that. I know I saw the blow-up doll with the big mouth open. Of course, it was one of the Japanese blow-up dolls, so the mouth wasn't quite as big as the American blow-up dolls. But nevertheless, I'm pretty sure I saw him with the goddamn children also. And I'm pretty sure that I've seen both of them in the match doing the deal where they pull their opponents' tights down and oil their fingers up and stick their fingers up their opponent's asses. But now don't hold a gun on me on that one. I know I've seen Kenny do it, but not Ibushi do it.
Well, these will be interesting history packages when they play them to build up the angle.
Yeah. So that's probably whose friends he's going to get. So Tony, old Shavanto himself, was in the ring to do a live promo with Gin and Juice. And I've got to admit that I enjoyed this partly because Tony stayed in the goddamn ring with the microphone while the heels were talking and conducted the interview while they had their arms around him and made fun of him, like it should be. And Tony, until they got interrupted or whatever the fuck, Tony was pretty much in there. So that was good. Gin and Juice comprised the team of Bullet Club Gold. Have they explained at any time on the AEW television program what the Bullet Club was, how it was formed, who was originally in it, who's in it now, or why gold now is a designation? Is it like the NWO, black and white, green and red, pink and purple polka dotted? What is the Bullet Club Gold, and has anybody ever bothered to explain it?
I don't know, and no.
Okay. Well, they felt Tony all up and everything. And Juice has something. Like you say, he's got that weird look. And he's got that voice and that way of speaking and the big eyes and kind of a round face. And just, he's got something. And he's hyperactive and peripatetic and every kind of thing. Jay White looks and sounds like every other guy from the UK that they've brought up into NXT. I'm sorry. I've had several people that I actually like say, oh, he's good. You got to give him a chance. Well, what are they doing to show me he's good on this program? He hasn't had a blowaway match where you said, wow, this guy's one of the goddamn great workers of the modern generation. Even if he is, he hadn't had one. And the promos, I don't think, are the way he gets over because I'm paying attention to fucking Juice. And when Juice cut the promo on FTR, he can talk. He's not just reciting shit. He's not playing something. He sounds like he really is halfway fucking demented. So Jen did most of the promo, but Juice is what I wanted more of. And then here came FTR. And the heels hid behind Tony Schiavone. And that was good. And again, this is a tag team program that might be interesting. I would love to see Jen and Juice have established themselves a little bit more first, but beggars can't be choosers. But basically they did the heelish thing where they asked FTR, oh, you want to join Bullet Club Gold? Well, ask politely, and then dropped the microphone in front of them. And at that point, that's when Tony was scurrying off. And suddenly Juice nailed Dax with a roll of quarters. And they double teamed Cash. And they each gave FTR their finish. And then suddenly, the two guys that had just beat up the tag team champions got run off by Ricky Starks all by himself. So I want to see Jen and Juice against FTR. I liked everybody's interaction here. It's nice to see the roll of quarters again, and they did fly so you could see them. But do they think, and it's the right way to do an angle when every time the heels just shut the babyface down with no struggle? Couldn't it have been ask politely and drop the microphone in front of Dax, and Dax look at the disrespect and slap Jay White in the face? And that makes goddamn Juice fucking do something like, oh, you motherfucker, and go and Cash pickles fucking him and knocks him in the corner. And then FTR both go and grab Jay and pick him up to do their fucking thing. But that's when fucking Juice has gone in his pocket and got the roll of quarters. And as they go to shoot Fernum off to give FTR to give them their finish, boom, there's fucking Juice with the roll of quarters and pickle fucking one of them. And now you've seen some life out of the baby faces, but now one's down. Now it's 2 against 1. And the other baby face fights back against the heels, but is shut down by the numbers. One's from behind him all the time. And then you get your heat. Instead of just, sucker punch, boom, down. Well, we fucked these guys up. It's kind of blah, don't you think?
I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying, although I thought the punch from Juice to Dax with the roll quarters looked great. I thought it looked fantastic.
Oh, it did. It did. I would have given them a little something first. All the baby faces get shut down. Darby came in the ring the other day and didn't do any damage. They just shut him down. Every time a baby face, and at this point now, and in the WWE also, you're seeing it. It's to the point where Owens, because he's got to be a smart ass and tell everybody how phony everything is if he doesn't like something, but he's always joking in his interviews about, well, now here's the part where we start fighting, right? You've heard that. Or I knew the part where we said your name, your music would play.
Yeah.
He's making fun of it because he's a smart ass and he really doesn't disguise it well, but it's true. And that's the thing is all these baby faces are just getting sucker punched. Let the baby face beat the fucking heel to the punch, no pun intended, when it comes to standing up for themselves, and then let the heel fucking cheat and the numbers game takes over. But you've got to show the baby faces have some ability to take care of themselves first. Anyway, I don't know. What did you think of the rest of this?
Well, for the promo, I thought the promo mostly was great. The only thing I don't like, and I may be a stickler for this kind of thing, but perfect use of Shivani. I don't think heels should be putting their hands on the commentators. Shouldn't happen. Shivani shouldn't be calling MJF a prick, but the heels shouldn't be standing there messing up Shivani's hair and putting their arms around him. Just let him hold the mic and do his job.
Let me say this. I don't believe that the talent ought to push the announcers around as far as physically attack them or jack them around, except if it's a rare angle or whatever. But when the heels are being smartasses and putting their arms around him and giving him a little, and I used to do a little bit of that to David Crockett, I think it's kind of refreshing because nobody acts like a smart aleck anymore. But that's just me.
Well, the problem is, I don't think David Crockett ever acted as uncomfortable as Shivani looked while this was happening here.
Well, Tony always looks uncomfortable anyway, and I wish somebody would take him to a men's store that actually gives a fitting and alters the clothing instead of just, here, it's off the rack, but it's yours.
The other day after the Met game, I had Channel 11 on, and that show The Goldbergs was on. I never really watch it, but the middle son, I think it was, who wears glasses, sounds just like Juice Robinson. On that note, I think this guy's a look. This guy has an energy. This guy's good on the mic. He's been all right in the ring. I'd like to see him and Jay White against FTR. And when FTR got in there, it didn't look crazy in terms of size difference. It looked like it would be a good matchup. I worry about it just going into a trios thing because of everything else in AEW becoming a trios thing. And Ricky Starks is already involved.
Well, but fortunately, Jen and Juice don't have anybody on their side, do they? But again, until they bring in a guy named Tonic.
Well, the other problem is, the other big problem with this whole thing.
See, that didn't even register with you at all.
Well,
I thought that one was good.
It was fine, but
all right.
What I was gonna say.
Somebody out there will like it.
Yeah, a few of the wrestlers like it all the time, too many times. But what I was gonna say is the only thing I didn't like about this really at all, the Bullet Club Gold shit. When FTR comes out there, obviously you want to join this thing that we've never talked about on this show that no one really is aware of unless you watch New Japan. There had to be something else. Just like there had to be something better for FTR against Jarrett and Lethal other than like, we want to be Mark's friends. No, we're Mark's friends. There had to be something else to do just to get this going. But otherwise, FTR are really good here. Fans are into them. Juice Robinson and Jay White. Hope they spend more time here and less time in New Japan because they've been really good.
Well, speaking of spending more time in the company, a long-lost friend is about to spend more time in the company because Tony Khan, then it was time for him to be on the bridge of the Starship announcement.
Thanks, guys.
To announce his announcement on the announcement set. And that announcement, as we have talked about briefly on the Drive-Thru this past week, a couple days ago, Collision, the new program on Saturday nights, will feature CM Punk. And that's the very last thing he said. And then they do the wide shots, the jib shot around the arena as the people reacted. And as we mentioned, it was mixed because you got the initial yay from the people who were waiting to hear that. And the people who weren't waiting to hear that because they didn't want it to happen, it settled in on them after a few seconds, and then they started the boos and the grumbling. And that went on that wave. And another thing, a good thing that, or a good point that people have pointed out, they were in California, so that's the Buckaroo's backyard. So they were ready to not like that announcement to begin with. But whichever way you look at it, they've done damage with their childish foolishness and Tony's inability to put his foot down and to turn personal pissiness into professional business, even though Punk has been trying, from every indication we've got. They've damaged a number of their top attractions, whichever way you look. The people who like Punk now probably didn't necessarily like the Buckaroos to begin with, but they hate them now, and vice versa. The people who liked the Buckaroos, they probably weren't enamored of Punk, but they didn't hate him. They do now because their boyfriends do. So You know, and meanwhile, the tickets for these TV shows are $500 a piece.
I think it was Taz after the announcement.
Like Mussolini!
That's what I was going to say. He didn't do it, unfortunately, as bad as that, or fortunately as bad as that. Well, you sound like crap. You know that.
No, I do. Now, I'll have you know.
I do know.
I'll have you know.
I already know. I just said it to you.
I'll have you know that my music teacher, when I was a kid, said that I was the best pupil that she ever had. Actually, her exact words were, of all the students I've ever had, you're the only one I can't teach anything to.
So there you go.
See, I knew it all already.
And then you threw a rock at her head.
Well, no, it wasn't her, but I wasn't welcome back in the fucking history class for a few. Nevertheless, so anyway, now we got this big announcement. And again, when they come back east on the right side of the Mississippi River, then Punk's going to be tearing the house down. When they go over there and they're on the left side of the Mississippi, actually probably the left side of the Nevada state line, then the Buckaroos will probably have the home court advantage. But
well, actually,
it's done nobody any favors, and the inability to advertise this in a coherent fashion, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. It's just ridiculous.
The other question I guess we don't have an answer to yet is, are you going to get the split audiences? Because if it becomes quickly defined that CM Punk and whoever else, based on that poster, FTR, Andrade, Miro, whoever else, if they're going to be on this one show, and the other show's going to have Kenny and the Bucks and Moxley and whoever else, if it's a clear break, when you're buying tickets, you know you're going to the CM Punk show. Are you going to go there to boo him? Or are you going there because you want to see him?
Well, it can't be a hard split because, for one thing, that'll tank the fucking ratings that they've still got on Wednesday night. Because there's not enough people that people give a shit about to watch to go around. It can't be, they can't. Who we just talked about on the last program we did, yours, the Drive-Thru. Who are MJF's logical challengers? And, how are they going to split that roster up? MJF and Punk is money. That issue has not been settled. MJF and Darby looks like something they're going to do based on the finish of the four-way, because why would you have beaten the only challenger in the match that was worth a shit? Unless they were coming back with a single match. Past that, what the fuck's going on for the world title? They don't have depth of talent. They've got quantity of talent. They have a plethora of guys on the roster, and they're mispositioned to where nobody... Can you do MJF and Danielson again after you just did it in February? You could always do anything again. Will people buy it again?
Should you do it again? That's the other question. I don't think you should do that match again right now. I'm not to say it wouldn't be great and we wouldn't enjoy watching it, but
right.
I think Danielson right now is going to play with his friends.
Well, yeah, and that's been muddied and muddled to the point where it wouldn't draw now, even though it was a great match. A rematch now would not mean as much as it would have if they'd announced it right after the previous match happened. So the point is, hard split, blah. They ain't going to be able to do that, and he's going to realize when he starts to put these formats for these shows together, sooner or later, that he needs all his goddamn talent available, at least, for both shows. All the talent I'm talking, not all the roster, all the talent. All the people that fans would watch and give a shit about. And this program that we're talking about shows that, because even if he hadn't split anything, it's not that deep. The next match was a triple threat match between Swerve and Big Bill and Cupcake of the Puddin' Gang. You mean to tell me that is flagship TV show worthy? If you had any other alternative? So, no, I honestly, I think Saturday night is a better night to sell tickets to a live event, but is it now, have they aggravated a segment of the audience to the point where people are going to say, well, fuck, I'm not going to go support AEW because it's AEW Pink with Punk instead of AEW Chartreuse with the Buckaroos. So I'll only go if it's Wednesday. And the other people are saying, well, fuck them fucking trampoline cowboys. I'm only going to go if I get to go Saturday night. And then and plus they are adding a second show in the United States of America every week while the number of towns in the United States of America remains the same. So that means they're going to, whatever they've been doing at whatever pace, they're going to do twice as much of it. And that's going to be twice as many tickets they got to sell.
And I guess this kills any Saturday house shows going forward, unless you're going to run a house show against your own TV show, even if you have a split roster.
Well, from what I saw about the house show, the card rather, that they just ran, and the ones that they ran in Corbin and Salem, I think they just ran Tupelo with a fucking entire roster. It was on the Federal Witness Protection Program. That they probably killed that as it was. They probably dropped that idea already. You don't hear more being announced, but at the same point, they do their pay-per-views on weekends. And now that WWE is going on Saturday night, they're going on, and AEW is going on Sunday, at least they won't conflict with their own pay-per-views. They'll have the night before as a go-home show, but they will be conflicting once a month with a WWF pay-per-view. And if their Saturday night go-home show for a Sunday pay-per-view does not feature everybody, all the top stars that are on the card on the pay-per-view, then that's kind of stupid. And if all the top guys are going to be on pay-per-views, which one would be led to believe you would want every top name that you could have on the lineup on the pay-per-view, then all these fucking fussing and feuding parties are going to be together in the same building anyway. And they're just going to have to avoid bursting into the other guy's locker room and fucking starting a goddamn hayrube. So how's that going to take place? Anyway. And 10 minutes of TV time for Swerve and Big Bill and Cupcake of the Puddin' Gang.
You didn't watch any of it?
Are you kidding?
I watched some of it.
Why?
Because I wanted to see, I was intrigued that they would put this match on this show in this position. So I said, let me give it a few minutes and see what's up. Not a fan of these these three-way matches. Big Bill looked good, gotta say. And I'm just intrigued by Swerve because here's a guy that got over. They did the thing with him and Keith Lee. They were the tag team champions. They broke up. And then whatever has been going on with this feud, it's mostly played out on other shows. Rick Ross showed up once, called Keith Lee a big motherfucker. I never saw him again. The two tattooed guys that beat up Keith Lee.
Oh, I forgot about them.
We don't know the guy with the tattooed face, and then Parker Boudreaux.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know where they are.
Yeah.
Swerve's now with these other people. He's just with another of the many random factions that hang out backstage. It's weird the way he's used here. But I watched this. One question for you that came out of this match. I'm not a fan of these three-way matches. I've seen too many of them. You've talked a lot about that. Would it make it better in some cases, and this is certainly not the case here, considering who's in it and the position on the show, but if you had three main eventers, if you had it so that you had to pin both of the other opponents, as opposed to one pinfall wins the match, do you think that would make it better?
Yes. Yes, because then, and by the way, that is the original rules. The original rules of a triple threat match were elimination. Last unbeaten man, last unpinned man, however you want to say it, is the winner. That's the way I did it. I think that's the way that Paul Lee did it when he took the idea for the three-way dance, didn't he?
I think so. Sabu versus Shane Douglas versus Terry Funk, February 1994, yeah.
And when JR took the triple threat to the WWF when he was booking the house show cards, I think that's where I can't remember whether the first ones were pinfall or not, or whether they made the change right at the start that first fall wins it so that they could avoid other guys doing jobs or whatever. I can't remember. But the original intention was an elimination. And again, to me, that's the only way that makes sense. Because otherwise you would have had a situation where a guy could lose a belt without being pinned, and that's ridiculous.
I'm not talking elimination. I'm talking whoever's in the match, you have to pin two people as opposed to one.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But you're not eliminated once one guy pins you.
Oh, okay. Well, Your idea is more busy because then you'd end up being 3 or 4 or 5 falls, and it might be hard to follow. Because if I'm against you and Styles Bitchley, but I pin Styles Bitchley, but I can't pin you, then you pin Styles Bitchley, but you can't pin me. And then finally, maybe I pin you. We're going around our elbow to get to our wrist.
Well, Styles still has a chance, even though, I mean, that would never happen because he
would never have a chance.
Weakling.
But the point, I like the elimination because people can follow it. And the thing I was going to say is the reason why it makes it better is because once you get rid of the first guy, and it's the easiest to get rid of the first guy because he can always have a bitch, because he can have had one guy beat, but the other guy stole it from behind. And that way he can even be up and he can come back out in the finish and fuck the babyface or whatever the fuck, if you want. But then you get down to the last 2 guys, you have a real match from that point on to get the people really involved and make the babyface sell and put him through hell. And then finally your big comeback. And then you can, like I said, run the other guy back in or do whatever you want. But that eliminates it being 3 guys for the entire time. And that helps. But what was your cockamamie idea?
My idea, because it doesn't seem like any of these promotions want to eliminate the third guy, would be that you have to pin both of your opponents to actually win the match. That way you also get a lot of different booking options coming out of it. I didn't win the match, but I pinned you. I beat the world champion, but he's the champion because he beat both of us before I could beat Styles Bitchley, whatever it may be. Again, it's busy. Probably only for main eventers and a Jim Cornette or a Pat Patterson or someone who could actually put it together in a smart way. Speak smartly also.
There's something in there. If it was related in English, it would be more apparent, but there's something in that idea. But again, it would have to be 3 guys in the ring that knew what they were doing and somebody that knew what they were doing to lay the thing out and give them a skeleton or a framework so they could fill it in and etc. But I don't think Tony Khan, the plumber, Twinkle Toes, and
Danielson.
Fuck it. Well, Danielson could be in it with other people, but not any of those people I just mentioned.
I agree.
Chris Statlander. She has moved. She's no longer from the Andromeda Galaxy. Now she's apparently a normal human and dressing like a normal human and being portrayed like a sympathetic babyface. And I think they got something here. And hopefully she doesn't get hurt. She's been hurt for the past 2 years. Hopefully she's good now. But she's more serious. The people like her. She's got the sympathetic story. This is hopefully an optimistic sign for the women's department or whatever. Women's division, not women's department.
The women's
Ladies
department.
lingerie.
Yeah. 3 people and a woman.
Did you see the
Did I say?
can you see?
I was about to do that. God damn it.
Or C, did you say the promo with Renee Moxley-Good with the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn? It was a live promo out in front of people. They brought him out in the entranceway, and they still didn't let Caster rap. And the only thing that I took away from this was the people still like him, but they've got nothing to talk about, and they're not as hot as they were because of the way they've been booked since people decided they were the greatest thing ever. And the main point that they were making here was that they were saying Billy Gunn deserves to hold gold one more time, and it's no problem with us that he lost last week, which is either Tony's normal stupidity in saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, or they're teasing that now Billy may turn on them and cut their throats with a pair of scissors. I have no idea. But there's going to be some animosity here by that, or is that just people being stupid and saying things they shouldn't bring up?
Well, the other possible thing they're teasing is that the match that was a random match that was not really announced, or at least we didn't know about it before the pay-per-view, them versus the House of Black, that first match was to build up future matches so that Billy Gunn could get a shot at this title, because what other title could they be talking about?
I have no fucking idea. But anyway, There you go. Let's invite the Acclaimed and Wardlow and Starks and Hook and FTR in some instances, and all the people that just got real popular through some reason or another, and Tony completely didn't know what the fuck to do with.
And again, Max Caster should be out there doing his rapping because it got him over, but also it's a tool that you could use to make everything more interesting. Let him go out there and bust on everyone. Get everyone in the,
Let him go out there and bust on everybody.
Just let him go out there.
Do you think he is Peter North?
That's not what I meant. I don't know what you.
Besides, there's some kind of goddamn city statutes about that kind of thing. You can't just go out in a sporting arena and just start ejaculating or gesticulating everywhere all over bystanders.
That wasn't what I meant, but they are in Southern California, for the record.
Well, where they're jacking it.
Where they are apparently jacking it. But let them go out there and just rip on all the other wrestlers because it's kind of everything's standing still with them. They're losing a lot of their buzz. And I do think, though, other than the merch, it's probably, if you're going to keep the Acclaim together, it's probably for the best for the long term to come up with an exit plan for Billy Gunn sooner rather than later.
I think Mother Nature will come up with an exit plan for Billy sooner
know what
or later.
I mean.
He's almost 60.
You know what I mean. I don't know how much longer they can do the whole daddy ass thing.
Yeah, well, it's not my week to call him daddy. So but here's the thing is that I'm not saying Billy can't be a great heel, but if he turns heel on them, he gets the heat. He gets the attention. I think if they want to try to salvage this, they almost need to turn the Acclaimed heel on Billy.
Do you turn the Gun Boys babyface to save their dad?
Possibly. But I mean, it's starting to get busy, but I mean, everybody's in a weird position here anyway. The Acclaimed are popular because the people decided they wanted to like them. As long as they did their shit, they were popular, but then they stopped being able to do their shit and they got into a feud with guys that were obviously green. And I'm not saying the Guns have tons of potential, but they're green and everybody's green. And Billy ain't green, but he can't get in and have the matches for everybody.
That's a great point, though. Just the fact that he was the one to turn on them, as a lot of fans thought was a possibility. What are you really setting up? All the heat's on him.
Yeah. That's why I think to get the Acclaimed over, you almost have to back over. You almost have to turn the Acclaimed on Billy and make him the sympathetic figure.
Especially if FTR are baby faces. Because then you need more heel tag teams.
But that makes a little sense. So that's probably not what's going to happen. You know what? I'm going to say this. I'm liking Take a Shit. I am really, with Don Fallis as his manager, he looks like the fucking surly heel in a kung fu movie. They had the live interview, Tony Schiavone in the ring and with Don and his new protege. And of course, the question was, why, Don, why? And they're doing the thing with Dominic, or the thing they do with Dominic in the WWE, the fans, they're doing that with Don Fallis now. They are booing him out of the building anytime he tries to speak.
Although, did you see some of the fans they focused on? They were hamming it up in a way I've never seen before in wrestling.
Well, yeah, it's the thing to do. And somebody on Twitter, I can't remember, I don't even know if I notice everybody's name, and I don't know who some of these gimmick names are anyway, but somebody on Twitter said, my God, this is molten level heat like the territories used to have. No, please. I'm saying I like this and I'm about to put it over. And I'm not saying that the people weren't screaming and booing and drowning Don Fallis out and that it was way more reaction than anything else on the program got. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying this is not molten nuclear heat. If you saw the people, as you said, even if they weren't hamming it up because they see the floor camera in front of them, and that's a large part of what these fans are doing, they're doing it because it's the thing to do. They're doing it because they're probably mad in storyline that Don turned on Kenny, but also they know that they're being part of the show and it's in fun, and you see some of the people doing the thumbs down and booing while they're smiling. I can promise you that is not the boo the heel out of the building heat from the territories, because that was accompanied by people that legitimately would have gone up to Don Callis and stuck a fucking knife in him if they knew they could get away with it.
Or at least kept some distance and thrown a battery.
Or it kept some thrown a battery, or a jar of Vaseline, or a goddamn whole flashlight, or one of those shoes. I got a jar of Vaseline thrown at me in Cleveland. in the 80s, remember? No, seriously.
I don't know this story. No,
in the 80s, they were still the metal. What's the brand of Vaseline? You know the jar that
I know the look. I don't know the name of it.
The brand name of Vaseline in the little squat jar. And I'm trying to remember the brand name now. Goddamn, somebody out there screaming at me. But anyway, in the 80s, it was still the metal, like the aluminum lid that you would pull off, and the jars were still glass. And it's about as big as your fist, and women would keep them, and this was the wintertime in Cleveland. Women would have these things in their purse. And that's what they would throw, is whatever. They didn't have a steady supply of shit laying all around them, so you got, like you said, batteries, flash cubes off Instamatic cameras, wadded up cups of ice, things that were in the arena or things that were in their pockets or purses. And many times somebody would say, I don't need this Vaseline. I don't need this flashlight battery. I don't need this whatever I got in my purse, as bad as I want to throw it at such and such heel. But anyway, nevertheless, I'm either that or maybe she saw that my lips were chapped. But anyway, Don was saying that he is the real victim, and he was trying to explain it. He couldn't get it out, and then he starts working it because he can't get it out, and that's part of the deal. Is it just elongates the, how the whole explanation finally gets out, but he's screaming, I lost a nephew, but I gained a son, because Take a Shit is better than Ricky Dozan or Inoki, Maeda, Okada.
Didn't name Baba. I was surprised.
Didn't name Baba. Well, I guess he figured Mrs. Baba's still around, isn't she?
No, I think she died.
Did she die? Okay, well, then maybe he's safe. Otherwise, she'd have got him.
Is she still alive? Hold on now. I don't know.
I thought she was.
Mrs. Baba. I wish Masahori was here. I could ask him. He would know.
Motoko. Is her first name.
No, she passed away. She did indeed pass away.
Oh, what year?
She passed away 5 years ago.
Okay.
She's buried in an urn the shape of Johnny Ace. What?
Hey!
No, I'm kidding.
All right, it's been 5 years. At least they didn't Randy Atcher mean he's been gone for 17 or whatever. But again, then Take speaks in Japanese, and I like this pairing. I've been a fan of Don Callis in the 90s, and until he, just picked the wrong people to hang out with, and you can't make Twinkle Toes palatable. But remember, Take has plenty of athletic ability. I don't know what he's going to learn around this bunch of lunatics, but he's got something, and Callis can talk. And the only thing I don't like about this is they're still cutting a promo on Harpo, so they're going to have that match, so that I can't look forward to that, but we'll see what happens with Phallus and Take a Shit going forward.
I thought, first of all, in terms of Takeshita, let's call him his real name here, it'd also be easier on YouTube. In terms of Takeshita, you know what? I really like him. He's got size. He has an intensity. He was out there and he didn't look ridiculous. I buy him. I think there's someone you talk about could be a future star for this company. Spend time on him.
There you go.
He's got something. Callis, I'm not a Callis fan, and I think he's ridiculous. Can't deny there was a reaction, although, again, it's different than... When you see the Dominic reaction, that started organically. This felt...
Right.
Again, there was close-up. At one point, there was like 3 fans. I swear, there was almost like they were actors. It was almost like they were acting. I would have thought there was plants that Tony hired for this, but it couldn't be.
I guarantee you, because they know when everybody's smart now to television. When there's a guy with a fucking television camera positioning himself 6 feet to your right, you know you might be in a shot. And when the red light comes on, the tally light, they're hamming it up.
But the other thing is the explanation. I'm not digging that either. I've lost a family. You cost me family. No one knows what the fuck he's talking about. So
I didn't care about any of the content of it, just the idea that he had to scream over it, and I like the pairing. But there's still no explanation that makes any sense.
You know, the entire BCC Elite feud has been poorly built up. Poor explanations for everything from Danielson to whatever else this is. The let's avoid CM Punk feud. Let's really call it what it is. I think there's more, and you saw it here in terms of heat, whether it's real or manufactured. There's more heat on Callis and Omega's thing than anything with the BCC and the Elite. This is something people care about. He's been with Omega since early on in the company. Daly's place, I remember seeing him, I think, the first time. So they've seen this story play out. The BCC thing just felt like a rushed, pushed feud for no good reason. Danielson says, I have a question, and we want them to be better, and none of this makes any sense or resonates with anyone. But Callis turning on Omega did. And again, as goofy as Callis is, Takeshita was dead serious, and I loved it. And again, put him over where it's right. Shivani was used properly as an interviewer on the show. Get him out of the commentary booth. He doesn't add anything there. Use him like this. Perfect way to use him.
But you just stumbled on something also. And Take was serious, right? Take had, you can believe in him. Don can be buffoonish if his guys aren't as buffoonish or more buffoonish. When he's with the Buckaroos, come on, and when he's with Kenny, you can't take Kenny seriously. He doesn't mean anything he says. He's not an intimidating personality. He does acrobatic wrestling moves for the people that like that kind of thing, but you don't think this guy's a fucking menace to society. He'll go off and hurt somebody. He's not somebody you can't wait to listen to his promos because of the over-the-top personality he's got. What blah, blah, blah. He's just goofy, and they don't, as we've said, they somehow, all of them in that group, manage to do whatever they do with their tongue in their cheek where you know they're not serious about it or they just don't give a shit. Whereas the manager can be, and sometimes should be, buffoonish with a serious guy under his control, so he provides the comedic relief. There's no need for comedic relief when the whole group is comedic at one point or another. So that's why at least Don could be more serious with this fucking guy. And maybe they'll put him in with the people he can learn something from, too.
Again, I wish there was a better explanation that made a little more sense or was a little easier to digest or explain. But I think this is the best thing I've seen Callis do in AEW.
Well, speaking of things in AEW, there's no transition to any of the best of anything here. The 9 o'clock hour, where they're supposed to be trying to snag the potential, people jumping off the boat from other programs and switching around at the top of the hour or whatever. Darby Allin teamed with our little puppy Pockets against Bishop Khan. Apparently that's Tony's big brother, and his partner Tia Leone. So at that's where they're supposed to have star power, supposed to have a big angle or big segment or whatever. I wrote, my God in heaven, what the fuck are they thinking? Because here's Darby Allin just got beat in the World Heavyweight Championship match at the pay-per-view. He's the one that was pinned. And as I said, I have to think that the reason he was pinned instead of Sammy or Jungle Boy, who are way more expendable and not nearly at Darby's level, is because they're going to bring it back in a single with Darby and MJF. But at this point, regardless of what they're going to bring back, this is where Darby needed a singles win over a half-ass name heel and then do a promo promising in his own inimitable way not to give up and to continue until he had conquered Mount Everest and that he had won the AEW World title. And instead, he gets a tag team match with the company mascot as a partner against two almost completely unknown guys that we have barely seen on this television program and haven't at all seen in months. And they're both 3 times bigger than he is. That makes him look like an 8-year-old kid. Is there anything else they could have done in this segment to make Darby Allin look worse? Oh, yes. They beat the shit out of him through the whole fucking match. The 1 star in the match. They not only kicked the shit out of him, they toyed with him. And at one point, both of the heels were just in the ring abusing Darby Allin, who was trying to fight back. And there's Pocket standing on the apron, doing nothing, getting buried, holding the tag rope while the referee does nothing about the heels double teaming either. And that used to be a fucking thing, that when the Midnight Express were baby faces, they couldn't fucking stand and watch that. Because the whole idea was that they were a little more heelish fucking baby faces than your average baby face. So they would count to fucking 10, and if the heels hadn't quit their double teaming, the other guy would come off the apron, grab one of the heels, start punching him, and say, "Don't fucking bury me. Do it and quit." But and then Darby gave the hot tag to Pockets. So this waste of fucking flesh made his comeback on 2 giants that had just beaten Darby Allin within an inch of his life with his hands in his pockets. And then I don't know what, that was enough for me. 15 minutes of television time on this. I assume that maybe Darby got the win, but probably, did you see the whole thing, or did you even pay attention to this?
I didn't pay attention to this.
Okay, well, so now Darby Allin has had the equivalent of Tony Khan squat down, take a shit in his hand, and pie-face Darby Allin right in the fucking face with it.
The one thing that did stick out to me, because I saw the end of it, they have a lot of guys who are smaller that are around the same size. Because Darby, I think, may have been slightly bigger, unless he was wearing lifts in his boots, slightly bigger than Orange Cassidy. And he's a tiny guy, and obviously doesn't weigh very much. But there are more slight guys in AEW pushed as upper mid-card or main eventers than anywhere else. Darby deserves it, because Darby is unique and pulls it off. I'm not an Orange Cassidy fan. Adam Cole is probably size-wise just in the range with these guys. There are more guys that slight in AEW than I've ever seen on a main roster anywhere. Wheeler Yuta's pretty slight. I mean, same thing.
Again, Darby Allin, if they had started a year and a half ago, or much less if they'd started when they opened the fucking company, and he was the only babyface under 190 pounds on the whole roster, and he was the only one that was allowed to do a dive through the fucking ropes like a goddamn bullet, and you accentuated his underdoggedness and his amazing ability, resiliency, whatever, and had the fight in him and his weird charisma, and you kept him away from exposing his really more stupid moments or attributes, such as when now apparently he has told the world that to impress his ex-girlfriend, he once rubbed BW3 hot sauce on his asshole before a car ride. If you had produced him, if you gave him a dedicated trainer producer, if you accentuated his strengths and nullified his weaknesses to the public eye and had pushed him as a single from the start, and he was the only guy under 190, only babyface under 190, and only guy doing all that stuff, he would be one of the top 4 box office attractions in the company right now. But instead, he just got the shit kicked out of him by 2 tattooed miscellaneous, and teamed up with the fucking mascot on television.
And also now, because of him, we have tons of listeners sending us photos of Mount Everest and, I guess, dead bodies along the side of Mount Everest that are now milestones or markers, I guess.
Anyway, did you have any further thoughts on whatever that was?
I'll repeat what I've been saying. Tony will never give up on Orange Cassidy. It's his personal favorite. It's his personal mission at this point. I will not be shocked if this guy gets the AEW World title. And I think all signs point to that being the way Tony would think about this.
Even all the buckaroos in the stands that like the joke wrestling would riot over that, wouldn't they?
I don't think so. Nope. I think those fans would embrace it for whatever reason, and there may be multiple reasons. But I think Tony is, again, they had Orange Cassidy at the media scrum. They're trying to push Orange Cassidy on every single show. He opens a lot of these shows. In Tony's mind, they're doing something different and new to break him away from being the sloth of old to be the sloth of new. And I don't think Tony's going to be giving up on this anytime soon. Anytime soon. I don't think so.
Well, we do know that Tony has determination. Speaking of other Tonys, Tony Schiavone was back in the ring. And you could tell he was killing time until they hit music so it could interrupt him unexpectedly, but Hook's music played. Remember when he was massively over?
Yeah, before he did anything.
Yes.
And then since that time.
But then he hasn't done anything since he got over. He got over by not doing anything, but then they took him away from us, and he hasn't done anything on television to not do anything. You know what I'm saying. Now he got minor clapping. And Tony Schiavone awkwardly pitched a question to Hook twice for some reason that what's next for Hook after helping the Hardys on Sunday? And, of course, he doesn't speak before here comes the heels. And this was almost like they made this up like, shit, our next segment has food poisoning. Go out there and do some shit. Here came Preston Vance, a guy in a mask, a lucha guy in a mask, and Jose the assistant, who was doing all the talking. And they come to, before Hook has ever said anything, you can't even really see him because of the hoodie on his head. And they just go to the ring and attack him and shut him down instantly. Remember, I was talking here earlier. The baby faces don't even get a flurry. They don't even get to stand up face to face and look good and then get nut shotted from behind or whatever. They just shut him down. And did you see Preston Vance throwing the punches?
I did. I was watching for anything he did after the previous time we saw him do something.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but was he not one of the dork order that did the fake punches in that, we referred to it earlier in this program, that infamous occurrence angle, whatever, on TV about 3 years ago?
He was in the Dark Order. He was number 10, I believe, but I don't remember if he was yet in the Dark Order in that angle, but that's not to say he wasn't one of the masked guys in the angle. I don't remember.
The point is, it's always the dorks. He grabbed fucking Hook, got on top of him, and threw what looked like at least 30 fake punches to his own forearm without coming anywhere in the vicinity of Hook's head. And you can see it on camera. And then Jungle Boy's music plays. And the heels stop their attack and turn around and stare at the entryway. And Jungle Boy walks out carrying a chair like he's going to fucking sit down and watch a concert in the field. And of course, all the heels run at him when they've got the high ground. He can't do anything to him in the ring. They keep him coming through those ropes. He's fucked. So they jump out there and run at him. And they do duck spots, and he hits the heels with the chair. And that frees up Hook in the ring to give Jose a suplex. So while Darby Allin went from challenging for the world title to having his shit pushed in by two unknown job guys, Jungle Boy went from challenging for the world title to saving a guy that we haven't seen in months from jobbers that can't work at all. Your thoughts?
My favorite part was when Jungle Boy did his run-in, they played his music, but because it was a run-in and he was going to get physical, they didn't play it too long. So I feel bad for those fans that they hear the music, they stand up, because you heard some of them, oh, and then the music just immediately stops.
Yeah, and it was like, oh.
The whole reason for that music is for the fans to get up and sing someone else's song. But, again, there's a lot of guys that are just, they don't seem like...
Why would you put Preston Vance on television when you have anybody else on your roster? Even the assholes that we don't like. They don't throw fake punches in front of a fucking floor camera.
Well, he's got the right friends.
You want to move on?
Yeah.
TBS title on the line. The new champion, Chris Statlander, against Nyla Rose. I watched this because I want to see Chris Statlander. Nyla Rose has been apparently in prison for about a year or so, not on television, maybe a home incarceration. I don't know.
Yeah, where has she been? We haven't seen Nyla Rose and I can't even remember the last thing we saw Nyla Rose do.
Well,
she was with Vicky Guerrero, I think, and Vicky's been gone a long time now.
Here's the thing. They thought, well, we haven't seen Nyla Rose on TV in a year, so we'll bring her back so she can do a job for Chris Statlander, because anybody who knows anything about wrestling knows that Nyla Rose is the exact wrong person to put in with Chris Statlander. Not because either one of them can't work, but because, again, the thing that Statlander has going for her is she's taller and bigger than most of the other AEW girls, and she's physically impressive, and she does good power moves for a woman. And also, she's coming off of bad knee injury. So give her a smaller heel that can bump around for her, that she can pick up and throw around. And that if anything happens and lands on her surgically repaired knee, it might not be the end of the world. Instead, she gets the only girl on the roster that is not only as tall as she is, but easily 50 pounds heavier, and has a history of tending to fall on some people's appendages. So, this was not nearly as bad as most of the AEW girls matches. And I think they've got something with Statlander. She looks like she can do some damage, and she's starting to be serious now. And the people like her. They have sympathy. I think this was a little bit long, and I think that Statlander could have looked more impressive, because they probably said, well, since you're going over, Chris, make Nyla look as good as she can, even though we haven't put her on TV in a year. Don't go out and make her look bad now. This should have been more dominant for Statlander, first fucking defense. And Nyla Rose chokeslams her and gets a 2 count on Statlander. And the very next move, Statlander just stops Nyla Rose, goes to the top, and hits the 450 splash, 1, 2, 3. So what? Went from chokeslam, 2 count, to, oh, I'll get up, kick you, boom, climb up to top, splash over it. They need either agents to put the matches together, or talent that listens to the agents, or potentially some instruction from the top to either party about what these matches need to look like. But I like Statlander, so pat me on the back.
I like Statlander too. I liked her. She really started impressing me before she got hurt. I remember being disappointed when she got hurt. I was a little worried when I saw her do the 450 here. I know how you land on that thing. And she just had her knees done. So I don't know if I would be doing that. But one of the problems with AEW, and this isn't to take away from Nyla Rose, because like you said, it's not about either one of the two people in the match. It's about the styles working well together. There aren't a lot of women top flight in this division. And when I say this division, the Jade division. I mean, usually these women over here don't even interact with whatever's going on with the Britt Bakers of the world and over there on that side of things.
And the Green Girls, the Outcasts.
It appears they're setting up Statlander and Taya Valkyrie. Now, Taya hasn't impressed so far, but then again, she's been working with Jade. I saw her in 2 matches with Jade.
Yeah.
Let's see her with Statlander. Statlander, she comes out of the same school as MJF and Max Caster, I believe, the Pat Buck school. What is it? Create a Pro. So she's got good training. Let's see if a good opponent will bring out the best in her. That's the one thing. That's the one thing we haven't had yet. Is just a great Statlander match. People are behind her and people want to be into her. Now we need a really good opponent for her, and we need a really good match.
Well, and Taya came in as a babyface, and then was a babyface against and gets beat by Jade, and then Statlander comes in and beats Jane or Jade or whichever her name. And now I can't remember. But now is Taya a heel now?
That's what she seemed like watching the monitor, didn't she?
Yeah. And that, so again, we don't even know when somebody comes in that we think we're supposed to cheer for. We don't know. We have to check back every week to make sure we're doing the right thing. Speaking of checking back to make sure they were doing the right thing, we have come to our main event of the evening. Adam Cole and Britt Baker in the mixed tag against Chris Jericho and Saraya. And remember, I laughed when they shot the angle on the pay-per-view to come back with the more intriguing match on free television. Now that I've seen this match, it had more appeal to fans to hear mixed tag match in their imagination than they would have enjoyed it when they actually saw it. Because they're 2 for 2 now. The Falls Count Anywhere single match sucked, and this was not good. Tell me what you thought first.
I mean, there's a lot to say. I mean, we could talk about Adam Cole and AEW so far, and we could talk about this match, and I think they kind of tie together. Britt Baker, too, at this point. I mean, Jericho, it's a broken record, and we've talked about it, and if Jericho works with the right person, there'll be a good match. If Jericho doesn't work with the right person, things tend to fall apart. The women did not look good in this match. I mean, it went viral, and then AEW pulled down the clip, apparently, off Twitter, of Britt and Saraya hitting each other with the forearms.
Yes, and the bend over and do-si-do and wait for it and all the other stuff, yeah.
This wasn't good. I mean, the one positive, like you said, that people seem to be a little into the idea of the mixed match. The fans were more into this than they were that awful match at the pay-per-view. San Diego was more reactive than Vegas was to all of this, but they need to do something different with Jericho, because I think even AEW fans maybe finally burned out on him, like we've been saying was going to happen. But Adam Cole, like, there's nothing that's done him any favors in AEW. Like, you just keep waiting for something, some sign of something. And listen, maybe him and MJF going back and forth on the mic is it. Who knows? But the in-ring has not been there. I mean, it was Orange Cassidy. He's had a bunch of injuries. We never really got to see too much with the Undisputed Era there. We never got to see him work too much with the Bucks because of all that. Those are his friends. You got to think that style-wise, they would get the best out of Adam Cole for what he thinks he could do. But this Jericho feud has been terrible. The angles have been terrible. The promos, even though, look, Jericho could talk, and Adam Cole can talk. And Britt, when produced right, can talk. But none of what any of them have said about any of this has mattered. They did a big angle where she got beat up. Doesn't really matter in the general scheme of things. I think the AEW fans are ready for this to move on.
Well, I was ready for it to move on, and I'm going to move through it quickly because just not even the angle, but just evaluating it as a match. Jericho is doing the Vader arm whips bad now. He's conserving every step he can in the ring. He grabs a guy by the arm and just kind of shrugs his shoulders, and they're supposed to run all the way across the ring. But the guys started, obviously the guys and the girls can't interact unless it's the girl beating up the guy. Is that they did one point just early in the match. Well, not early, after the first break or whatever. Tony Storm and Ruby Soso came out and attacked Britt on the floor so Sheeta could run out with a kendo stick and all of them just fight off. And you never see him again.
And Sheeta looked like she was having a party. I mean, I get sometimes you may have to smile when you do something and you can't fight it. It happens to me when I'm recording this show. But she looked like she was having the greatest time out there swinging that kendo stick.
And after all that heat that they got on Britt Baker, well, that fucking what's her name? Goddamn Saraya got on Britt Baker, and And then they have the run in and they all fight off. And then Jericho is taunting Baker and Britt just slaps him and nails Saraya and gives Cole a flat-footed Cole tag. Not just a Cole tag, but a flat-footed Cole tag. Just walked over there, reached out, and had both feet on the ground when she tagged him. While they were in picture with the collision dates graphic on the screen. So they built the heat on Baker, and then she makes her own comeback on both the opponents and gives a flat-footed Cole tag while in picture. And then Adam Cole made a comeback on Jericho, and then they just laid down and sold so that Britt could make a comeback on Saraya, even though Cole never tagged Britt in. I think they forgot because she was supposed to be. And then Saraya went for a superplex, and Britt knocked her to the mat, and she landed, took the bump, and then rolled back over and squirmed into position to lay there for Saraya or for Britt to come off the top, but Jericho's begging Britt, don't come off the top. And then, for the first time ever in the history of wrestling, a heel sacrificed himself. That's the babyface spot. Dusty Rhodes loved that spot. The heels would be ready to come off the top rope on a helpless babyface, and his partner at the last second would jump in and throw his body over the helpless babyface and sacrifice himself. The heel would land on both of them, and the guy on top would cushion the blow. Well, this was the babyface in the piece, splashing both of them, and then got a 2 count on Saraya. And then they tagged Adam Cole back in, even though she never tagged in to begin with. She tagged him. And, I mean, then Adam went for the Panama Sunrise, but Jericho caught him in the walls of Jericho, and Britt Baker puts her Michael Jackson glove on and puts the lockjaw on Jericho, but Saraya breaks it. Then they had another simultaneous Cole tag to the girls, really fake forearms. That's what you were talking about that was clipped. Saraya dropped Britt Baker right on her head with a DDT. Jericho brought the baseball bat in the ring in front of the referee, who did nothing as Jericho swung at Cole and missed, and Cole super kicked him. There's the bat fumble. The referee standing looking at it. Why did you need the bat to begin with if you couldn't use the bat without the referee seeing it? And then Cole and Britt hit a double super kick, and Cole hit his knee on Jericho, 1, 2, 3. So now Jericho is trying to prove to Tony that the 10-year contract he signed him on, where he'll be 62 before it's over, will lead to great results because he's willing to put over all his talent. And that was about that.
Another Jericho feud where no one comes out of it for the better. Adam Cole does not come out of this for the better. Chris Jericho doesn't come out of this for the better. They got to do something different, and I don't know what else there is to say about all this. Britt Baker, we talk about AEW's women division problems. Britt Baker is not very good in the ring.
And again, 3 years ago when they were starting out, dentist, professional woman, attractive, decent in the ring, we thought. You know, push her, make her something, I was all for it because you're starting from scratch. What do you got to lose? And then they made her a heel, and that first week was abysmal because they left her twisting the wind. She'd never done a heel promo, but then she gets the promo. But the promo came early. The work has not come, and it's late. What were the ratings on this fiasco? Let me get comfortable before I hear these things. I'm stretching my hip out.
What the hell are you doing?
I'm stretching. Okay, I'm getting comfortable. All right, what's the story?
The story this week, May 31st, AEW Dynamite on TBS, was 923,000 viewers.
Oh, now, what was different about this program as opposed to the ones that have been getting 800 and something thousand? It wasn't certainly any better in quality. One must think that something was teased, a possible carrot was dangled on the proverbial stick as to people might hear something that they wanted to hear.
Well, we'll see how the ratings play out, but the show opens, segment 1, 8 to 8:15 p.m. Claudio Castagnoli, Jon Moxley, and Wheeler Yuta versus Bandito and the Lucha Brothers. With picture
and a 2-minute suplex.
With picture-in-picture, 1,040,000 viewers.
Whoa, now that's the first time in quite a while that they have started at their previous over million level since we began to question the popularity of the Big Bang Theory. So that's a good start.
Segment 2, 8:15 to 8:30 p.m. The continuation of the previous match. The Young Bucks, Adam Page, and the Dork Order backstage. The Juice Robinson, Jay White, FTR, Ricky Starks live promo. 999,000 viewers.
Okay, so apparently 41,000 of those were just the people that tripped getting up to change after the Big Bang went off.
Segment 3. Tony Khan announces CM Punk's return, along with Trent Beretta versus Big Bill versus Swerve Strickland. I can't say that name without it being funny.
I know, even if, for fuck's sake, even if he's good, if he's the shits, you know, he's working hard, he's whatever the fuck. Give him a last name at least. Big Bill Dromo, for fuck's sake, Junior. I don't care, but just Big Bill is the most nondescript, generic, bland, great value, as they say. How you going to market that? There's Big Bill. All right, go ahead.
Versus Swerve Strickland with picture-in-picture. 991,000 viewers.
So again, they only lost 8,000. That was the announcement was in that quarter hour that they wanted to hear. But where do they go from here now that all the children have grown up? And how do we face our lives knowing nobody gives us a chance?
We go to segment 4, 8:45 to 9 p.m. The Chris Statlander promo video, the Acclaim's promo on the ramp, as well as Don Callis and Takeshita's live promo, 906,000 viewers.
Ooh, okay. Many people apparently have heard what they wanted to hear. That's a drop of 85,000 more. So we are now down 134,000 since the start of the episode.
And by the way, I should say these were compiled by WrestleNomics.
Oh, that's right. We got to give credit where credit's due. Thurston Howell III is on top of all of the wrestling business in the various companies these days. All the statistics, the things that people need to know.
Well, let's go to segment 5 here, the big 9 o'clock hour, 9 to 9:15 p.m. Darby Allin and Orange Cassidy versus the Gates of Agony with picture-in-picture, as well as the post-match with Sting, Brian Cage, and Swerve. 888,000 viewers.
Ooh, okay, so we've dropped another 18,000.
Segment 6, 9:15 to 9:30 p.m. The MJF video, Hook, Preston Vance, and Dralisto? Do we know him?
That was the guy in the lucha mask.
Well, him, as well as Jungle
and
Boy.
And a suit.
Well, they're
apparently now the lucha suits over in the WWE aren't using the gimmick anymore, so now all the lucha guys in the AEW are wearing the suits.
Well, that segment, as well as the Outcast backstage promo and Chris Statlander versus Nyla Rose, 866,000 viewers.
There went another 22,000.
Segment 7, 9:30 to 9:45 p.m. Chris Statlander versus Nyla Rose continued with picture-in-picture and a recap video, I believe of the pay-per-view, 854,000 viewers.
So we've got down now to about where they have been over the last, several weeks or however many weeks, where we said this is about the number of people that are going to watch, 850, somewhere around there.
And finally, segment 8, the main event, 9:45 to 10 p.m., Adam Cole and Britt Baker versus Chris Jericho and Saraya.
Now, wait, I thought that might have some interest, maybe more interest than the Falls Count Anywhere single match between Cole and Jericho would have had, because at least it's different instead of something that's, is going to look like the same thing they always do with everybody. Did anybody tune in to see that on free television after they shot the angle on pay-per-view?
With picture-in-picture, 839,000 viewers.
And the answer is no. They've turned 15,000 away. And not in a good way of a sold-out arena, but like, no, we turn away when we see that. Okay, so that's what happened. A bunch of people tuned in to have their question answered. That was the one thing that they were up in the air about over the last week was, is Punk going to be part of Collision or not? They started with 1,040,000. And by the announcement, they had only lost 49,000 of those people, and most of them, as we said, probably the big bangers. After the announcement, they lost another 152,000 people to finish up, starting 201,000 down from where they began.
Considering the mixed reaction to CM Punk, I thought the audience would have been like, okay, we heard the news we want. We don't need to watch anymore. Do you think any of the audience said, we heard the news we didn't want to hear. We don't want to watch anymore?
Well, no, because why would you not want to watch the rest of the program that you know that he's not on because they announced he'll be on a program? That you just keep watching Wednesday if you don't want to see Saturday. But it did satisfy the curiosity of a lot of the people, but then there was nothing else to hang around for, because look at the state of all that. So, again, they only lost a certain amount until the announcement, and 991,000, and then they lost another 160,000 off of that. That's not AEW's faithful fans tuning out. That's people said, okay, is he coming back? Okay, he's coming back. Well, we'll come back when he comes back. And or they just didn't give a shit about the rest of the program.
Well, I think that's part of the problem.
That's part of it, too.
There's a lot of people on this show that have been on this show a lot, and they're not doing anything special. We've talked about the Orange Cassidy issues where he started off so many shows. Here he is at the 9 o'clock hour, didn't hold anyone from the announcement. They still kept leaving. You had some women's segments. Statlander hasn't been around in a while. Nyla Rose hasn't been around in a while. No one gives a crap about the Outcast and Britt Baker stuff. MJF, it was a not throwaway, but it was a backstage promo segment as opposed to anything live. They front-loaded the top of the show with BCC, The Elite, Tony Khan's announcement. Even if you're a hardcore AEW fan, what's the motivation to stay around? To see that Jericho match?
So what you're saying is they didn't hold the viewers held their noses and turned away.
I think they risk people getting sick of a lot of people they've been using regularly because of how they've been used, and also just because they've been used regularly forever.
Well, but see, here's the problem. Somebody with the attention span of Tony and or his ilk over there will take that statement and go, okay, that means we should only put somebody on TV once every 6 weeks. And they can't, nobody can find the fucking middle ground between light and shadow or science and superstition. You get your top guys you push, you hear from them or see them, or refer to them or show video of them every week. Okay, and they're winning a lot more than they're losing. And then when he has talent, he has roster depth, if not talent depth. So then the fucking peons that he thinks are cute, that nobody really wants to fucking look at, and they just look past, those are the ones that should be seen sparingly and heard even less. But those are the ones that he is continually, whether it be the mascot or the green girls, they're all in green, how apropos, or just anybody that he has done to death over the last few years because he gets it in his bonnet. That's what people get sick and tired of, and it looks all the same. And especially the chaos in the matches, because there's nobody to oversee the matches with not only the knowledge, but the authority. So,
Hey,
That's the problem. You want your top guys on TV every week. You just want to make sure that you pick the right top guys.
Hey, another note here. This was Dynamite's highest total viewership since March 22nd, however, down 11% in 18 to 49. Whatever that says.
I don't even care.
You know, what's done is done, and the network wanted what they wanted. But how beneficial do you think it would have been to AEW for Collision to be a 1-hour show as opposed to a 2-hour show?
It would have probably been easier to start off with and make the, by popular demand announcement months later or however long later, because that way they wouldn't have to. Again, he's got a plethora of people, but not deep on real talent that can draw a mainstream television audience past the bubblicious audience they got that doesn't grow because it's And, again, the mixed reaction in San Diego, that was California. It'd be overwhelmingly positive in Chicago. It would be probably 6 one, half dozen the other in a number of markets. It's going to vary across the country depending on the fan base, because every AEW fan from every state in the union is not the same. But again, they're carving up a small pie. They're turning parts of their audience against parts of their roster. They're putting different talent, so as we are led to believe, at least in some part, on their Wednesday night and Saturday night TV shows, not because of a business strategy, but because of fucking meh. So they're diluting the talent roster. They're diluting the fact that AEW is now on one of those networks 5 hours a week, counting Rampage that nobody watches. It's all getting, not only the fan base is getting watered down and overexposed, but the talent roster and the television time and everything else. And since all their shit looks the same anyway, because all of these fresh-faced, perky young talents were raised on the Outlaw Mud shows, how are they going to make it look different besides Punk's segment? What's going to fucking be different about Saturday than Wednesday? And if Saturday don't look any different than Wednesday, for the people that watch both, they'll get tired of Wednesday because they're seeing twice as much of it. Well, before we move over to the $21 billion empire known as the WWE UFC conglomerate and rip apart some of their efforts, what are you doing on your fine programming on the Arcadian Vanguard Network, the Wrestling News, the 605, and All Points South?
Another fine week of fine programming on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Get information about all the shows on Twitter at Superpodcast or on Facebook at facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. A few notes. Of course, with so much going on in the world of wrestling, you want wrestling news you can trust. Get it every day from The Wrestling News. Get your free daily wrestling newscast. News you can trust, no opinion, no conjecture, no star ratings, just actual wrestling news. And again, free as it will remain. The Wrestling News. Get it directly from thewrestlingnews.com or look for Arcadian Vanguard's The Wrestling News wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
Get it every day for free and like it.
Also on the Arcadian Vanguard YouTube channel, subscribe today and get free daily wrestling news videos. This week on Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon, his guest, George Shire. A fun talk about the AWA and so much more. Check that out today, suawpod.com, or look for Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And of course, the 605 Superpodcast, The Mothership!
Oh, good Lord.
Go through the archive today at 605pod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. The Mothership.
You sound like a ruptured goose over there. Yeah, see, and do it again, you'll get hemorrhoids. Oh, boy. All righty then.